Hi, I am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel. Welcome to this week's podcast. There was a slight delay between the last podcast and this one because my website and email went down for about 10 days. Technological inconvenience, but it's back up and running as well as it can be, as far as I can tell. But this week I wanted to continue on talking about what I learned at the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine conference. And this week I'm talking about endocrine disruptors. So, what are endocrine disruptors? They are things in our environment that disrupt our hormonal system. These things mostly fall under the different varieties of plastics. So, you may know of or have heard of BPA. That was one that I remember certainly from, I think, the late 90s, early 2000s when Sheryl Crow had breast cancer, and there was a link to reusing plastic water bottles and having them in our car and the plastic being heated, and that then releasing more chemicals into the water and then that having a hormone disrupting effect. That was certainly the first time that I heard, and you see lots of plastics now BPA free, which is great that they've removed some of the BPA from some of the plastics, but not all. But that's not the only chemical in plastics that cause harm. The next one that's on the conveyor belt of being highlighted are phthalates. So phthalates are in any plastics that make the plastic more pliable, more bendy. So the bags that your fruit come in, for example, the medical tubes that are on drips, they are phthalates, that pliable plastic. And that's just two things that are coming to mind that these phthalates are in. These phthalates have been strongly linked with particularly sperm count. There's a doctor, Shanna Swan. She's written a book about this because they have in rat models really been able to prove that these phthalates are influential in reducing sperm count. But when you look at population and you look at the male population sperm count, it has halved in the last 30 or 40 years since these phthalates have been introduced into the system. Now, these plastics, and you also hear about microplastics being in the water system. When they're doing tests of people's urine and people's feces, they are finding microplastics in the excretion. They're finding microplastics in people's lungs, especially after all the mask wearing, those crappy blue masks that lots of people were wearing. They were breathing in those fibres. There is evidence and certainly conversation within the medical world, and I heard both a nurse and a fireman discussing this about how their colleagues in their mid-50s were all ending up with lung issues, whether that was lung cancer, COPD, and because they were breathing in these environmental toxins all the time. Really important. If you look at plastic anything, there's usually one of those wee recycling triangles with a number in the middle of it. Now, if that has a number 3 in it, it should be nowhere near food. Also, if it's got a PC in it or a number 7, that should never be anywhere near food. So this is really important to think about if you've got plastic containers that you put in your microwave, because not only is your food coming in contact with these plastic containers, the issue is when that plastic is heated, it starts to leach the chemicals into whatever it is that it's in contact with. So whether that's food, whether that's drink. I know a lot of these thermos cups that you get are made from plastic, which is great because they don't burn in your hands, but not great because you're then drinking toxic chemicals. A lot of the takeaway cups that you get from places have got a coating on a plasticky coating on the inside, and that those plastic lids that they put on top of those takeaway cups so that you don't spill them on yourself, they're a problem. A lot of cans that your food comes in has a BPA coating inside to stop the metal from leaching onto the food. There comes in a problem if you've then got plastic as that barrier. Even bigger problem if the can is dented. Now, I always remember when I was young, when we bought tins of soup and stuff, my mum always looked for the cans that weren't dented. Probably not because of plastic, probably because when the metal gets dented, the metal's then leaching in, and that causes a whole host of problems, as we know. But now we've got the plastic, this BPA lining inside the cans, so that is going to be leaching into your food. And some canned food has a shelf life of years, so then that food's going to be sitting in contact with that. Okay, brilliant, yay, the food for food shortages or risk of food shortages, that's really good. But the coating on it is an endocrine disruptor. We know that it causes metabolic issues. Obesity, diabetes are two of the most common metabolic issues. Neurological issues, we've got a huge rise in Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's disease. These plastics can all be one link of the chain into these issues, fertility issues. So even for women, endometriosis, PCOS, not having a diagnosis of these things but not being able to get pregnant, irregular periods, really, really painful, really, really heavy periods, these are all disrupted hormones that are going to be impacted by all of these toxins that we're getting exposed to all the time. Now, the good news, after I have terrified you with all of this information, the good news is there are things that we can do about this. We can avoid plastics as often as possible, so not buying bottled water. If you are buying bottled water, make sure you're not leaving it sitting in the sun, or decant it into another type of drinking vessel as soon as you possibly can. We can take our food out of plastic wrapping as soon as possible. We can try and eat a diet rich in organic fruits and vegetables, then we're not being exposed to the pesticides and herbicides that are sprayed all over our foods. These are all being shown to be hormone disruptors as well as the plastics. You know, there's over 1,000 compounds in our environment that have been identified as hormone disruptors. And I've only named a couple of them because I can't remember the name of most of them because they're chemical names that my brain just doesn't hold on to. In some countries, there are more chemicals in the environment than other countries. The EU has got strict guidelines and strict rules around what chemicals can and can't be used. That said, for those of us living in the UK that are no longer in the EU, who knows what's happened, who knows what the changes have been, who knows what they're telling us, what they're not telling us, we do not know. So if you can get access to and afford organic foods, then that would be your first step. Growing your own foods, that's going to be a massive, that has multi-levels of benefits for you. First of all, you are getting your fingers in the soil, so you're exposing yourself to the microbiome of the earth. You're growing your own food, so you know what kind of soil you've put it in. You know how you're fermenting it, ideally with making up your own compost, your own food waste, letting that break down to be able to nourish your soil, and then digging it up and eating it. It's a whole cycle of wonderfulness if you can grow your own vegetables, and it's cheaper than going to the shops to buy organic. Also means that you're getting food that grows in your local environment and also food that is seasonal, which is fantastic. Making sure that you're getting quality protein. Again, if you can, going for organic. Not always possible, not always available. It's not easy to find organic meats, but if you can, getting that quality protein in to help build a stronger body. Lots of fruit and veg, so making sure that you're getting a high fibre diet that helps with your own natural detoxification process. The fibre helps, depending on whether it's soluble or insoluble fibre, it's either helping clean out the pipes or it's helping feed the microbes, which then create gases and chemicals and hormones and all these other things that help your body and help support your immune system. Making sure that you get good quality fats in your diet. So your extra virgin olive oil, we know that that is anti-inflammatory. That's really, really good for supporting your system. Coconut oil, avoiding your seed oil, so your vegetable oil, canola oil, rapeseed oil. These oils, when they are heated, become toxic in the body. They become trans fats, which we know cause metabolic damage and other health issues. So your good fats from natural sources where possible. Making sure that you sweat. So getting a sweat on a couple of times a week, whether that's through exercise or going into a sauna, but the sweat is part of your body's natural detoxification process. If you sweat, you are pushing that out, you're pushing those chemicals out of your body and away into that detox. So supporting your lymphatic system, that's going to be another one that's really important. And it's one that I'm always banging on about. Teach it inside the Healing Rebel program. Teach it as a standalone course, just self-care, lymphatic drainage. So I highly recommend that you look that out, because if your body is holding on to fat, it's holding on to toxins, it's not being able to detoxify them. Your lymphatic system is doing amazing at keeping your organs safe, but then your body is full of toxins, which creates inflammation, which eventually will create disease. So getting a sweat on. The current research on soy products, which is always a pendulum swinging from one way to the other, and I think it really depends on what part of the world that your soy is produced. A lot of American soy products are genetically modified because they grow them as short and stacked so that they're mass producing them. Currently, it's saying that it helps with breast cancer prevention. Some people can't tolerate soy. Is it the soy, or is it how it's genetically modified, or is it the chemicals that's been sprayed on it? So if you're going to get soy, make sure it's non-GM, non-genetically modified, and it's organic. Personally, I don't eat a lot of soy products. I have done in the past, give me really bad winds. I was eating shop bought tofu, which is full of all the chemicals and crap that we don't want to be putting into our body. But if you buy dried soybeans and then make your own products from those soybeans, and they are organic and they're non-GM, then they may be very beneficial to you. Because I've got endometriosis, there's a question mark over whether or not soy is a good product for people with endometriosis. There's mixed reviews. Some people say no because it produces more estrogen. Other people say yes because it actually supports the estrogen receptors and stops more being produced, which helps reduce the endometriosis. You have to listen to your own body because the science is undecided at the moment. Water filter. I have had conversations with people. I'm like, if there's only one thing that you do for your health, is get a water filter. And the scientist that was given this information at the conference said that the basic carbon filters, what's it, Brita, and there are other, like just those cartridges that are fairly inexpensive. I personally use the Fox filter, which I really like because it doesn't have the plastic cartridge. It has a sachet of the grains that you just refill into the bottle every 4 to 5 days. So you're not having loads of plastic waste and exposing yourself to more plastic. But these basic carbon filters do a very good job at getting a lot of the crap out of your water. Most houses these days have water coming through plastic pipes. So as your water's coming through the system, there's this potential for the plastic leaching into your tap water. And then there's the chemicals that they put in the water to clean it. I've spoken about this many times before. So if you were to do one thing for your health, get a filter on your water. I've got one on my shower head, as well as I use the water filter for making my tea and my drinking water, because that will remove most of those compounds from your tap water, and we need to stay well hydrated so that we can sweat, so that we can detox. And then after you've sweated, you need to make sure that you're replenishing all those fluids. So that is a fast whiz through some of the information that we were provided about the endocrine disruptors. And as I have said about many other things that I talked about in the past, getting scared and getting paranoid about these things can cause as much harm and stress as the thing itself. We do what we can, we do the best we can with the knowledge that we have available. And if we are putting things into place like filtering your tap water, staying well hydrated, doing our movement and exercise to help stimulate our lymphatics, and we're eating as well as we can, then you're doing the basics. you are doing really, really well if that is what you're doing. Anything else on top of that is just an extra boost. But if you are already really focused on getting those basics right, if we think back to the 6 pillars that I talked about last time, making sure you get good sleep, you've got healthy eating, healthy relationships, physical activity, mental well-being, and the one that I always forget, because I always forget one, listen to the last week's episode. I'm quickly trying to look through my notes to see if I can find the 6th pillar, because why does it escape me? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Listen to last week's podcast, I talked through them all then. If you're getting those 6 pillars nailed, then you're on the right path to better health. If you are surrounded by and overloading your body with toxins, your body is going to respond in a negative way to that. So we do the best we can. We try and not get scared. We try and not get paranoid. That's where the mental well-being and the healthy relationships come in. Healthy relationship with yourself, with your environment. And that is going to make a difference in your life. I would love to know your thoughts on this. Some people say, oh, this is minimizing harmful substances. That was the 6th, and that's what I'm talking about today. Oh, it's the one I always forget. Yeah, I'd love to know what you think. Some people say, oh, this is all pseudoscience, this is all pseudoscience, but see if you go and actually look at the science, there is a lot of work there. The scientific community are all very confident in their understanding of this information. And amongst the science communities that study this, they are in agreement that these plastics are harmful to health. It's all the rest of society and all the rest of the world that's generally ignoring it. And if when people are talking about it, we get accused of being a bit wacky or a bit woo-woo or a bit nuts. You go and look at the science yourself. A lot of it's not understandable, so you listen to people who can explain it in a way that makes it understandable to you, and then you can decide, does that feel true for me? How is my health? Is everything going well? Am I sleeping well? Am I pooing daily? Do I have good detoxification? Is my weight in a healthy range? Do I feel happy and energized on a day-to-day basis? Am I pain-free? Then if you are all of these things and these things are all falling into place well for you, then you've not got anything to worry about, so keep doing the good stuff that you're doing. But if you are smashing your body with all the chemicals and all the toxins, and your body's, even if your body's not failing you yet, you will eventually be knocked to the floor. So decide how you want to live and live happily that way. So I'm going to tune off now. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember to like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever it is you do, and whatever it is the channel that you are tuning in. It's how other people get to learn about what it is that I'm teaching. It's how I get to help more people. The social part of this, where you engage with it, where you share it, that's what the whole point of social media is for the sharing of information, for that sense of community. And sometimes I just feel like I'm talking into the abyss, because a lot of my listeners are people who don't connect and don't communicate, which is absolutely fine, but I feel quite lonely. It would be nice to hear from you. I will speak to you on the next podcast. Thank you so much.